The British American Tobacco South Africa has lost more than 2 billion rand in revenue since the 9-week lockdown began. I'm now joined via Skype by Sinenhlannga Mnguni, who is chairperson of the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association. Lovely to have you with us, Sinenhlannga. We were just talking to our reporter now, Malungelo Boy, who's out in Pretoria. There was supposed to be a march taking place where smokers were expected to gather and hand over a memorandum at the union buildings. So not only are smokers contesting this, we know that various petitions have been signed, but also various organizations, including yourselves. But what you're doing, you're actually taking the Minister of Health to court. You've got a date set for the 9th and the 10th of June. Give us an update on why exactly it is that you're taking them to court and what the merits of your case are.
Thank you for having me on your show, Tommy. Just a point of correction. The respondents in our application are the President, one, and the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. Obviously, that is the minister who is seized with the regulations governing the lockdown period as ordered by the Disaster Management Act. We, on the 26th of May, received the record of decision and reasons from the respondents in as far as what led to the banning of the sale of cigarettes and tobacco products on the level 3 regulations under Regulation 27. We were then tasked with responding in as far as filing a supplementary notice of motion and founding affidavit, which we did on Friday afternoon. The respondent now has until tomorrow to file their answering affidavit in response to our supplemented papers. And like you stated earlier on, the matter will be heard on Tuesday. As per the directive of the Judge President, it will be before a full bench of the High Court. What we are putting forward in as far as our arguments is that the Disaster Management Act does not permit or enable the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs to enact such a ban on the sale of cigarettes. We are submitting that she acted ultra vires in that regard or beyond her powers. We also raised many other arguments in as far as the adverse health implications on smokers, for instance, the surge in the illicit trade of cigarettes, the loss to the fiscus, the loss of revenue by a number of people along the tobacco industry value chain, and a plethora of many other reasons which we raised. And we are confident that we have put together a very good case in as far as this is concerned.
If we look at British American Tobacco, and one of the concerns that they've put on the table is the fact that they've managed or have not managed to have any sort of communication coming either from government or any of the other leadership. How has the communication line been for you, and are you actually expecting a response?
Look, there's been little or no communication. I mean, the only communication which we've had was initiated by the legal proceedings which we instituted, wherein Part A of our application, which was heard on the 12th of May, dealt with, amongst other things, the manufacturing and exporting of cigarettes. Now, we had addressed numerous pieces of correspondence to government in relation to this issue, and they refused, for whatever reasons, not to engage us, rather. And we approached the courts, despite it being abundantly clear from the regulations that this was permitted. We then succeeded in getting government to concede in as far as this relief is concerned. We have then addressed many other concerns to government, but in a similar fashion to other industry role players. We've had no joy, and there seems to be no desire from government's part to engage with industry at all, which is quite baffling considering that they have engaged many other industries. We know, for instance, that many stakeholders or role players in the liquor industry have stated that they were engaged in discussions with government, which led to the lifting of the ban of the sale of alcohol.
Now, as the Fair Trade Independent Tobacco Association, who are your immediate stakeholders? Who would you say that you speak for and represent?
We represent the majority of South African cigarette manufacturers. We have 8 cigarette manufacturers in our membership there. There are only 10 cigarette factories currently in South Africa, so we represent 80% of cigarette manufacturers in South Africa. And obviously along the value chain, we have many people that we employ as well. So we've got quite a big imprint in as far as the tobacco industry value chain. and those are the people we represent. But we should never forget that obviously the people that support our businesses are the consumers, and there are 8 to 11 million smokers, and we, in this matter, represent their interests as well.
Now, I'm quite interested in this conversation around illicit cigarette traders. They were obviously existent pre-COVID-19, and now the assumption is that their networks have amplified and they've strengthened because of the ban of the sale of cigarettes. Give us a bit of background about the tussle and the tug of war that has existed between illicit cigarette traders and the conventional, legitimate infrastructure.
Look, the issue, like you correctly stated, has been around for decades. We know as recently as 2 years ago, the Nugent Commission highlighted this particular issue and stated that the receiver of revenue was losing billions due to its inability to police the cigarette industry and the large portion of illicit cigarettes that had entered the market. We know that, for instance, another institute had stated that the fiscus loses about 7 billion rand. We can only imagine that now, with the complete ban on the sale of cigarette products coming from legitimate manufacturers, the current market, or what rather the South African Revenue Service is losing, is way in excess of that. We know, for instance, that the Commissioner for SARS, Edward Kieswetter, stated that during the lockdown period, there was a loss of some 15 billion as a result of the receiver of revenue not being able to access taxes which are traditionally levied on cigarettes, and obviously the many other tax types which are paid by tobacco industry role players. Now, it is concerning, particularly in light of the fact that we know that government currently is in dire need of these funds, and where it is prepared to forego billions without even engaging with the stakeholders that contribute these monies. It is quite concerning, and we do not know the reasons why government is persisting with this ban. They have provided reasons which do not allude to any form of scientific basis, in our view, for the continued ban on the sale of cigarettes. We know that scientists who have assisted government have also come out strongly and stated that they did not support the ban of the sale of cigarettes. So we do not know what the actual reasons are for government's continued ban of the sale of cigarettes.
So, Sine, if you could answer this for me, if you were not having competition from the illicit sale of cigarettes, if no other third party or entity was benefiting financially from the sale of cigarettes, would you still be taking the government to court? Would you still be fighting this battle?
Definitely. As I alluded to earlier on, I mean, we raised a plethora of other issues. It's not just the exponential growth of the illicit trade during the lockdown period. I mean, you have to look at, for instance, psychiatric literature, rather, which states that you do not force a smoker to simply go cold turkey. You implement measures that will slowly allow that person to come off that addictive substance, which is nicotine. It has been described as a cruel ban by many medical practitioners. We also look at the employment factor and the amount of people that are employed by the industry along the value chain. There are many, many reasons which we can raise beyond the illicit trade and the sale of cigarettes. And we have submitted that the ban is irrational, and there has been no basis which has been shown to us by government for why this ban is being continued, particularly in light of the fact that we now see the ban on the sale of alcohol, for instance, being lifted. We have also seen, from a health point of view, that there's a high number of diabetics who have succumbed to the coronavirus, and you do not see a similar ban, for instance, being implemented in relation to sugary products and many other food products which are deleterious to one's health. So we're still of the firm view that this ban is irrational, and we do not agree with it.
All right, and we'll leave it at that for this afternoon. We thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.